Hey everybody, it's the Jazz Architect. Today we're going to be talking about what really happens when you ask AI a question. Welcome back to the Jazz Architect podcast, where we talk about jazz creativity, education, leadership, artificial intelligence, and the future of work. I'm Richard Johnson, and today I want to take you somewhere most of us have never been, but many of us visit every day without realizing it. I want to take you inside an AI data center. Now, I recently watched a YouTube presentation called The Entire AI Data Center Explained, from Electricity to ChatGPT. And I have to tell you, it made me look at ChatGPT a little bit differently. Most of us type a question into ChatGPT, hit enter, and it sends out an answer in a few seconds. Looks pretty easy, right? Looks clean, almost magical. But behind those 2 or 3 seconds is a massive physical operation involving electricity, computer chips, cooling systems, fiber-optic cables, storage, networking, software, and enough equipment to make your neighborhood extension cord nervous. So today, I want to slow the process down and explain what is really happening when you ask AI a simple question. Because AI may live on your screen, but it definitely does not live inside your phone. Let's begin with the word cloud. We hear that word all the time. My pictures are in the cloud. Has anyone here seen the movie Creed, where the main actor or character Adonis Johnson says to Rocky, "It's already in the cloud"? My documents are in the cloud. Many LLMs are operating in the cloud. The word makes everything sound light, peaceful, and floating somewhere above us. But the cloud is not actually floating. The cloud is a building. That's right. It's a physical place, a building. Actually, it is usually a very large building, filled with rows and rows and rows and rows of computers, wires, cooling equipment, batteries, security systems, and electrical infrastructure. The cloud is less like a fluffy white object in the sky and more like a humongous Costco filled with computers that never closes. And unlike Costco, you cannot walk in, buy a 48-pack of paper towels, and leave. These AI data centers can be the size of several football fields. They may require as much electricity as a small town or even a small city. That is one of the first important lessons. AI is physical. It requires land. It requires buildings. It requires electricity. It requires water, cooling. It requires metals, cables, processors, human labor, and so on and so on. So when we talk about the AI revolution, we are not only talking about software. We're talking about construction, energy, engineering, manufacturing, and infrastructure. AI may feel invisible, but it has a very large physical footprint. The next idea I'd like to talk about is the search engine. What is generative AI? A search engine is a little bit like a librarian. You ask a librarian a question, and the librarian points you towards books, articles, websites, and then you find the answer. Generative AI works differently. It's more like asking the librarian to please sit down, read everything in the library, and then write me a response based on all the information you've gathered. And you want it in 5 seconds. That's pretty fast. That's a little bit closer to what we're doing when we're using these platforms online. When you search on Google, the system often retrieves information that has already been indexed. That's right, it's already there. It's just looking it up, like a library. When you ask AI a question, it generates a new response based on patterns it learned during training. That means it is performing calculations for your specific request. It is not pulling a finished paragraph out of a filing cabinet. Now, sometimes AI sounds so confident that you think it must have found the answer, carved it into a stone tablet somewhere. No, it's generated. And that is why we must remember a fluent answer is not automatically a factual answer. AI can speak confidently and still be wrong. How many of us have met humans like this? All right, let's talk a little bit about tokens. We've mentioned this in the past, but large language models do not see sentences exactly the way we do. They divide language into smaller units called tokens. A token might be a word, part of a word, punctuation, or another piece of information. Your question is broken into tokens, processed as numerical information, and the response is generated one token at a time. That is why the words often appear gradually across your screen. You are watching the model being built as you receive the answer. Think about a jazz musician improvising a solo. The musician does not normally have the entire solo written out before playing it, right? Solos develop in real time, phrase by phrase, based on harmony, rhythm, style, memory, and what happened a moment earlier, or at least it should. An AI response develops in a similar fashion, in sequences, except AI is predicting tokens rather than listening to the rhythm section for ideas. The token is also becoming a unit of business. Companies may charge according to the number of tokens going into and coming out of AI models. So tokens are not only the language of the system, they are also part of the economics of the system. Can you imagine the AI industry has figured out how to put a price on words? Well, they have. All right, let's talk a little bit about training and rehearsals and the performance. Another important distinction is between training and inference. Training is when the model learns patterns from enormous amounts of data. During training, the system adjusts billions of internal parameters. Inference is what happens when we use the trained model. Every time you type a question and receive a response, the model is performing inference. Here's the musical analogy. Training is rehearsal. You practice scales, harmony, rhythm, repertoire, phrasing, and musical vocabulary. You make mistakes, adjust, repeat, and improve. Inference is the concert. That is when you use everything you have learned to respond in the moment. Now, the model may be trained periodically, but inference happens consistently. Millions of people are asking questions, generating images, summarizing documents, writing emails, producing code, and creating content every day. So training may be the expensive rehearsal, but inference is the never-ending tour. And unlike a jazz musician, the AI does not ever complain. All right, what happens when you hit enter? Well, let's slow it down. The journey of a prompt. You type your question, you press enter. First, your request leaves your phone or computer and travels through your internet connection. It may move through Wi-Fi, local networks, internet providers, and fiber-optic cables. Then it reaches the company operating the AI system. Before your question reaches the model, other systems may check your account, manage traffic, apply security rules, review safety concerns, and gather the relevant parts of your conversation. The prompt is then broken into tokens and converted into numbers. The AI processes your instructions and the content surrounding them. It begins generating an answer one token at a time. Those tokens are converted back into words and sent through the network to your screen. And all of that may happen in a few seconds. It is almost like ordering food at a restaurant, except your order travels across the country and is translated into mathematics, cooked by thousands of processors, and returned before the waiter can bring you your water. That's pretty impressive. It is also a reminder that what feels simple to the user may be extremely complicated behind the scenes. Good technology often hides its complexity. A piano looks simple too, right? Black keys, white keys, wood, and some strings. But when you open up the hood, there's 12,000 moving parts. Let's talk a little bit about electricity now. We hear a lot about AI chips, especially GPUs. One of the largest limitations on AI growth may be electricity. These data centers require tremendous amounts of power. We've been hearing a lot about this in the news lately. Another data center popping up, taking over someone's private property or farm. So let's pay attention here because you're going to see it and it's going to be around. You cannot build a giant AI facility without power. You can't just plug it into a wall and hope the lights stay on. The local electrical grid needs sufficient capacity. The facility needs transformers, substations, backup systems, distribution equipment, and reliable energy. In some places, companies may have the land, the money, the computers, but they cannot get enough electricity quickly enough. That is something we do not always discuss. People talk about AI as though it is only limited by imagination. No, that's not true. Sometimes it's limited by the power you can get or the power company. That is a very human ending to a futuristic story. We are building machines that can write poetry, interpret images, translate languages, and analyze complex information. But first we have to ask somebody whether the circuit breaker can handle it. The growing demand for AI is pushing companies to examine nuclear power, natural gas, renewable energy, fuel cells, and on-site power generation. So the future of AI may be determined not only by the computer scientists, but also by electricians, engineers, construction workers, utility companies, policymakers, and committees. All right, now that we've begun talking about electricity, we can't talk about electricity without talking about heat. That's right. One causes the other. An AI chip produces a lot of heat. I mean, a lot of heat, more than probably most people realize. One advanced AI processor can generate heat comparable to a household space heater. The brain of a powerful AI processor can be about the size of a postage stamp. Yet it holds tens of billions of transistors and produces enough heat to need serious cooling. The whole unit is 10.5 inches long, about 4.5 inches tall, roughly about 1.5 inches thick, and it weighs about 2.6 pounds. So it is roughly the size of a large hardcover book, not merely a postage stamp. Now imagine dozens of those processors operating inside a single rack. Then imagine thousands of racks inside a data center. At that point, you are not running a computer facility. You are operating the world's most expensive toaster oven. Traditional data centers relied heavily on air conditioning, but as AI systems become more powerful and densely packed, air alone may not remove heat efficiently enough. That is why many facilities are moving toward liquid cooling. Coolant may circulate through metal plates positioned directly against the processors. Other systems use heat exchangers, and some experimental designs immerse computer equipment in specialized liquids. Cooling is not a side issue. Without effective cooling, the chips become too hot, performance drops, equipment fails, and the entire operation may shut down. Most people and musicians understand this. Think about it like this. If you have the greatest band in the world, but the air condition shuts down and it is burning up hot, the time is limited of listening for you and for them to play. All right, let's talk about the GPUs. They're kind of like the rhythm section of AI. If you don't know what a rhythm section is, let's talk about the bass, drums, guitar, piano. They're keeping the groove going. All right, in AI, the central workhorses of modern AI are often the GPUs or graphics processing units. A CPU is designed to manage complicated instructions and a wide variety of tasks. A GPU is designed to perform many similar calculations at the same time. A CPU might be compared to a brilliant soloist who can play many roles. A GPU is more like a large rhythm section with thousands of musicians all playing precisely at the same time. GPUs were originally developed to handle computer graphics and video games. Creating graphics requires many mathematical operations to happen simultaneously. It turns out neural networks need a similar type of parallel processing. So equipment developed partly to help people play video games became the foundation for a technology transforming medicine, education, finance, transportation, and creative work. That is a reminder that innovation rarely travels in a straight line. Sometimes an invention created for one purpose becomes valuable somewhere completely different. Get your patents and trademarks together, guys. You never know who's going to be using it. All right. Now, one GPU cannot withstand doing all the work. Lots of times they're chained together. Large AI models are too big to fit into the memory of one processor. The work must be divided across chips. That means the chips must communicate constantly. This is where networking becomes essential. A powerful GPU that is waiting for information is wasting time and money. AI processors also need to stay synchronized. Information must move quickly between chips, racks, and sometimes entire buildings. Two terms matter here: bandwidth and latency. Bandwidth is how much information can move at once. Latency is how long it takes the information to arrive. Think of bandwidth as the width of the highway and latency as the traffic delay. A 10-lane highway is wonderful, but not if everybody is sitting still. AI systems need both high bandwidth and low latency, so thousands of processors can function like one giant computer. Now, the HBMs keep the GPUs fed. HBM stands for High Bandwidth Memory. The GPU may be able to calculate extremely fast, but it must receive information quickly enough to remain productive. If the memory cannot supply data fast enough, the GPU waits. Think of it in terms of a restaurant kitchen with 50 great chefs in one refrigerator. The chefs may be talented, but eventually somebody is standing around waiting for the butter. HBM helps solve that problem by placing high-speed memory very close to the processor and stacking memory components vertically. HBMs are stacked vertically for the same reason city skyscrapers are. When space near the most valuable location is limited, you build upwards. That keeps more memory close to the GPU and allows information to move faster while using less energy. This allows enormous amounts of data to move into the GPU quickly. In many AI systems, the challenge is not simply how fast the chip can calculate. The challenge is how fast the memory can feed the chip. That is why the HBMs are very important. The fastest musician in the band still needs the correct chart. All right, hardware needs software, and that means we need leadership. A data center can contain the best chips, memory, and networking equipment in the world, but without software it cannot do useful work. Software distributes tasks, schedules requests, manages failures, organizes memory, and decides how to use the hardware efficiently. Some systems combine several users' requests into groups. This is called batching. Some preserve useful information so it does not need to be recalculated. This is called caching. Others reduce the numerical precision of models so they can operate more efficiently. This is called quantization. These techniques help reduce the cost and time required to generate responses. It is similar to leading an orchestra. Owning 50 instruments does not create music. Someone still has to organize the parts, establish the tempo, decide who enters, and when to make sure the trombones are playing and follow the conductor. Hardware provides capacity. Software provides coordination. And human beings still decide the purpose. That is the leadership lesson in all of this. Technology needs direction. Power without purpose is only expensive noise. Will the investment produce enough value? Let's talk about the cost of all this. Technology companies are spending enormous amounts of money on data centers, chips, electricity, cooling, software, land, and research. The assumption is that individuals and organizations will eventually pay enough for AI servers to justify the investment. That may happen through subscriptions, enterprise software, specialized applications, productivity tools, education, medicine, science, and countless other uses. But the main question remains, will the value exceed the cost? The buildings are expensive. The power is expensive. The chips are expensive. The cooling is expensive. And the technology evolves quickly, which means today's state-of-the-art equipment may feel old sooner than companies expect. The tool may be powerful, but the human being must still bring purpose, judgment, taste, ethics, and experience. All right. AI is a physical body. That's right. You may be talking to a screen, but it is a body. It may be a building. It is a building. It's a bunch of equipment, computers, GPUs, all somewhere. And you're sending your request there, and you're getting back an answer at the speed of light. So don't forget about that. It's important to realize this every time you put in a request. Every response requires electricity. Every calculation creates heat. Every model depends on processors, memory cables, cooling, network, storage, buildings, and people. When we ask our LLM a question, we are not simply interacting with a piece of software floating in space. We are interacting with one of the most complex technological and industrial systems ever constructed. And that leads to larger questions. What does AI require? Where will the electricity come from? How much water and energy will these systems consume? Who owns the infrastructure? Who receives the benefits? Who carries the cost? And how do we make sure the technology serves human beings instead of human beings reorganizing their entire lives to serve the technology? All right, the Jazz Architect is here, and I'm here to preach the truth so you can know and we can all shine and glow. So the next time you ask your LLM a question and receive an answer in 2 seconds, remember, what is happening behind the scene? There's an entire technological orchestra performing in the background. The chips are playing. The memory is feeding the band. The network is keeping the time. The cooling system is trying to stop everyone from passing out. And the electricity company is standing at the door holding the bill. All right, keep your eyes and ears open. Stay kind. Be a groovy person. And remember, being creative and innovative is the best way to start and end your day. I'm Richard Johnson, the Jazz Architect. See you the next time.